Today on the Take On Board podcast, I'm speaking with Moira Junge about the importance of sleep for board directors. Before we start the podcast today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we record. For me, I am on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I also pay my respects to any First Nations people who may be listening or watching today. I acknowledge their continuing connection to land, waters, skies, culture and country. I support Voice, Treaty and Truth for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in Australia, and I encourage others in the Take On Board community to do the same. Now, let me tell you about Moira. Moira was on the Sleep Health Foundation board for 6 years before stepping into the inaugural CEO role. She's also an advisory board member at Healthylife. Moira is a public health advocate, a clinical health psychologist, an adjunct associate professor and former registered nurse. After 3 decades on the front lines treating mental and physical health challenges, she made the switch from intervention to prevention. Moira aims to bring clarity, credibility and urgency to one of the most overlooked and misunderstood pillars of mental and physical health, sleep. Welcome to the Take On Board podcast, Moira.
Hello, Helia.
It is so awesome to have you here. Folks, Moira is part of the Take On Board Accelerator program this year. We've talked about sleep a little bit in that program. And in fact, this came up because you'd introduced me to
Simone.
Simone, that's right. Who's on the Healthylife board.
Yes.
And
yes.
as a kind of side note to that conversation, I asked her about nutrition for board directors. And then I'm like, well, hang on a minute. I should be having a conversation with Moira about sleep for board directors because it's
and
so
I'm so
important.
glad. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here.
So I'm very much looking forward to that. However, before we dig into sleep for the boardroom, not sleep in the boardroom, folks, sleep for the boardroom, let's dig a little bit deeper about you. Tell me, what was young Moira like? And when did you get your first inkling that you might end up as a board director?
Well, gosh, I never had an inkling that I'd be a board director, but I did have an inkling I was going to be an ambassador and work in foreign embassies. So some kind of leadership role, exactly, I guess. The young Moira was the youngest, or second youngest, number 9 out of 10 children.
Ooh.
And so very, very surrounded by lots of noise and lots of people and 2 very busy parents who were very community oriented. You know, mum was the president of so many things at once, like the school things and the netball club and other things. And dad was very involved at the church. Imagine with 10 children, we brought up Catholic. So they're very big with the football club, netball club, and the church stuff. And so we were always very involved. So and sleep was a big thing in our family. We had we were very health conscious. Like we were down the beach, cold water swimming at Sandringham Beach before that was cool. I was very embarrassed that dad did that in the 1970s. We had lots of veggies. Sleep was really prioritized. There was a really healthy lifestyle and a really happy, loving environment. And probably we'll get to my sort of the career trajectory. And the thing was related to my a tragedy in year 10. My mum got sick and died very quickly with cancer.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, really awful. But that was probably it really shaped the rest of my long 36-year career in health and still going.
Right. Oh my gosh. It's so interesting having these conversations. So often I hear about, definitely about powerhouse parents, but powerhouse mums. I hear a lot about powerhouse mums that, as you said, the president of this, that and the other, like everything, keeping the community going. It's interesting. It's a real influence clearly on the next gen, that's us, and presumably the next gen again and the next gen again of women who get involved in these things.
Yeah, absolutely. But then I think probably not really attending to her health, too little too late with sort of monitoring symptoms and probably not sleeping enough and things like that have been a real call to action for me.
Well, let's turn to sleep then, shall we, Moira?
Yes.
Those that are not governance nerds out there would probably think sleep happens in the boardroom. That is not what we are talking about. And in fact, it is probably about sleeping outside the boardroom so we can operate our best in the boardroom. So I don't know, where should we start this story?
Okay, well, gosh, where to start? I think probably you need to start with that sleep is such a hugely important core pillar of health, like a core component of our well-being. And it's something that, even though you hear it talked about all the time in the media, etc., it is something that we haven't had enough attention to at a society level. Like we haven't had systems, influence, policy, government funding, awareness campaigns, all that sort of stuff. So, but what I want to bring, so that's my sort of what I'm doing career-wise now with this, the job. But what I want to bring to this discussion around in the boardroom, particularly the audience is largely female, and women are twice as likely to report insomnia. And we know that leaders, like the type of women in your community and my community, quite conscientious, educated, driven, high empathy, self-confessed warriors, they are prone to insomnia. And I think that it's and then also maybe around this age too, not always, but I think there's a bit of a bracket here of perhaps perimenopause and menopausal women in these leadership roles and or aspiring to leadership. So I think it's a really great conversation just to start with, that sleep's important, why I'm so passionate about it, that we need to talk about the individual factors that people can do, but also perhaps these larger ones around stemming the flow, sort of the upstream factors, like the whole of society factors, because with sleep, it's actually the individual circle. Like, if you think about a graph that I often show if I'm giving presentation, small circle of individual factors, and there's a bigger circle of social ones, and then even bigger whole of society factors. So yeah, a bit like sort of that circle of influence you might have seen, the things we can influence. It's the same sort of thing with sleep. We know that it's a sort of a health equity issue. People you see on those Uber bikes going around crazily at night, they're probably doing 3 jobs. They're not getting a lot of sleep. A lot of people worried, mental health issues, they're not getting a lot of sleep.
Yep.
A lot of choice. Like sometimes there's not much choice. Like a recent survey we did with the Sleep Health Foundation, we did a sort of household survey, a representative sample, that but 70% of people said, look, you know what? I know sleep's important, but it's my health, it's my mental health, it's my family, it's my work. I don't feel I have a lot of choice. I don't feel I have a lot of choice over my sleep and when and how well I sleep.
Yeah.
I thought that's a really interesting thing. So the boardroom discussions, not only for the women listening who are sort of, senior leaders in boardroom and they need to keep well, being aware of bringing this into their discussions and thinking about well-being at work and well-being in the organisations they're in, it's all different levels.
Interesting. Yeah, right. Okay. So self-management like it seems to, I should say, I feel almost guilty saying this when we're talking about sleep, but I am blessed to be a good sleeper. I've always been a good sleeper. I am, as a woman who's getting a bit older now, probably not as good a sleeper as I was 20 years ago, but I'm still, like, even me not sleeping well is better than a lot of people. Sorry, folks, if you're listening and that is not you. As I say, I sometimes feel a bit guilty about it. What was the point of me saying that? But it's interesting.
You're a great sleeper, yeah.
Yeah, and that those sleep is so important. So I know when I don't sleep well, if I want my brain to function the next day, sure, my body as well, but for the board often it's more about your brain than your body. But if I want my brain to function and I haven't slept well, it's very difficult to keep on it. And
absolutely. And we know why. We know that there's that acutely there's a thing called the lymphatic system, which wasn't in the textbooks when I was around. It was actually only discovered in 2012, that there's an incredible sort of a inbuilt cleaning system that the brain has, and largely happens during sleep. So the toxins that build up during the day are sort of flushed out, and the cerebral spinal fluid goes through. And there's all these lovely things that happen largely in sleep. So when we don't get the sleep we need, especially someone like you who hasn't adapted to poor sleep, it's something that's very unusual for you to not sleep well. That brain fog, like you feel hungover without alcohol. You can feel like, gee, I feel like I feel a bit unwell, and I don't have clarity. I have difficulty with my words. I have difficulty, remembering things. So that's sort of the what happens with poor sleep, like acutely. So longer term, people with inadequate sleep over long stretches of time are more at risk of some, chronic health conditions. So, it's an urgent thing we need to take seriously, because you're at more risk of cardiovascular issues, some dementia, mental health condition, obesity and overweight, type 2 diabetes, all sorts of things like that, which I hate. I'm much more of a positive speaker and solution-focused person, but the reality is we can't ignore those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the flip side, which I find really frustrating, is that you don't want people to be anxious about their sleep and overthink it, because ironically and cruelly, paradoxically, they won't sleep well then. So we have to, and often the women I'm talking to, that profile is talking about, it's often the leaders and the conscientious, educated people.
Yes.
Will overthink it.
Yes.
And we'll probably present to, I think they label themselves as really poor sleepers.
Yeah.
And they're probably not the target audience. Like they're getting adequate sleep a lot of the time. They're quite educated. They just think they should be do better. Should be striving. So you should be more. They should be they're A+ students if they want A+ with their sleep. So a lot of the treatment has been, and anyone listening to this, or people, you'll know most of what I do professionally as a psychologist specialising in insomnia, and now with my public health messages about sleep to the general Australian public, a lot of it is saying, try not to worry too much about it. Try not to look at the clock. You don't need 8 hours. It doesn't have to be unbroken. In fact, we wake all the time. The messages are like that. So probably when we started the foundation in 2009, or the first AGM was 2010, it was around that whole, the public need to know how important sleep is, because no one was talking about it. Sleeplessness, particularly in corporate areas, was a badge of honor. Like it was really uncool to go to bed at 9 o'clock. It's sort of on brand to do late meetings and get up into work really early. Sleeplessness was not so we started talking about it. And now what I do mostly now is there's been an overcorrection. Social media, influencers, the commercial determinants, people are sort of selling and talking about it a lot, because people know how desperate people are about sleep. Yes. And we now have to dampen down, like we have to say, look, you know what? You don't need all those pills and potions and products. Most of you just need to sort of manage your workload, understand the light and dark influences, some key messages. So we feel like we've got a really key role in being an antidote to the frenzy that's out there in the media and social media. So we're hoping for attention for that, make some funding to sort of bit of a David and Goliath story of being able to actually, a bit like Beyond Blue has been able to do for mental health, and what the Heart Foundation does for heart health, that people sort of know who they are and to get trusted information. They're the voice of truth, perhaps, but they're well regarded. We just want to be that. We want to be the voice of truth and well regarded, that the public know and your listeners know that there's information. We've got 100 fact sheets. There's we're hoping to get our own podcast on sleep. We're hoping to have a helpline one day, all that sort of stuff, that people will know where to go for trusted information.
So, it's difficult then, right? Because there's so much on there. There's 100 fact sheets. And I'm about to ask you for, your favorite tip, which out of 100 fact sheets is going to be tricky to do. But where should, and people listening will be everywhere on the spectrum. There's going to be some like me who are good sleepers, and sorry, sister, my sister, I'm going to dump you in. And there's going to be some who are my sister who is not a good sleeper, and everybody in between, right? So and I know this makes it really difficult because there is a really broad range, but what are some of your tips? Because we know sleep is important. We know that it impacts on physical and mental health, as you've said. We know the board directors need to be performing their best in the boardroom. What are some of the things that we should be on the lookout for and or doing that is not just the next social media craze, but science?
Yeah. I think, the main sort of call to action, or the main thing I'd love people to know is, don't put up with poor sleep if it's really debilitating. Like if it's negatively impacting on your occupation, occupational functioning or social functioning or both. Really important to not just accept that as a normal part of menopause or a normal part of aging or a normal part of being a busy mom, whatever. it's actually really important to not put up with that. A bit like there's a lot of talk now about pain and, that you speak up and ask for help, because there will be a reason for your poor sleep and there will be a solution. So, so get a GP referral, go to a sleep specialist, that sort of thing. That's a call to action. But that's probably really the extreme end of people who are really very debilitated, like they, sort of not going to work or changing jobs or not going for jobs, based on their sleep or lack thereof and that sort of stuff. So that's a really important key thing. And I think another key thing is to try not to self-diagnose or, just sort of shop around and look at things online where you think, oh, right, and all of a sudden you're on melatonin and magnesium and you got this special mattress and you got this special plug-in blanket. Like, try not to go too far with all that sort of stuff until you actually have a think about what are the like people are, everyone listening is educated enough to be their own personal scientist practitioner or scientist. You have a bit of a lens inside and think, what are the key things? When did it probably start? What are the sort of precipitating and perpetuating factors here? Yeah. And the predisposing, so that, their own personality type, etc. So maybe, because I think a lot of people are sort of throwing a lot of stuff at their sleep, but not hitting the root cause, not sort of targeting the right thing. So that's another sort of core thing, because it's hard to give the top tips with the top tips are really these things, like work out what the problem is. Make sure you've got enough room for sleep, like prioritize it, carve out more than 8 hours a day for it. You may not need 8 hours, but you need to have that time of getting off to sleep and the winding down period before sleep. You need to have that understanding that you will wake. All of us wake in the night. Even a young, healthy person with no mental health problems or no big jobs or no physical health problems and aches and pains, etc., they will wake a couple of times an hour because they are sort of changing body position or transitioning into a different sleep stage. But what happens is they're not looking at the clock. Or it's for such a split second that in the morning when they wake up, it's not salient enough. It hasn't gone into the memory. It hasn't been something that's been processed enough to go into the memory bank.
Yes.
But when we start to have sleeping difficulties, and when they start, often it could be around your first baby or your first time you're in perimenopause. That's the first time you think, oh my God, I can't sleep all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It starts to be this, we accidentally perpetuate it because we're being really distressed by it and we keep looking at the clock, or we try too hard. We call it sleep effort in textbooks. Like, try not to put too much effort into it. If I detect that people are really putting a lot of effort into sleep, it actually
like,
is sort of,
I'm sleeping. I'm going to sleep now.
Like someone like you, Helia, like I didn't know you're a great sleeper, but I think when we research people, when we ask people who are good sleepers, what the secret, like we need to know, can you have a guess what they tell us?
Not worrying about it?
Yeah, well, they say, I don't really think, they're a bit dumbfounded. They say, I don't know, actually. They go, I've never really thought about this.
I said, you just go to bed, don't you? And
I just sort of haven't really thought about it. And I don't worry about it. And they're not hooked into any kind of narrative about that they must. Because I know it's awful. And I'm so lucky that when I haven't slept well, like around, pregnancy and menopause and losing loved ones, I just haven't worried about it either. And it's actually settled within weeks and months. It's just sort of settled. Yes. It hasn't been a thing. So I suppose there's that. So I guess in terms of insomnia, those things are, don't look at the clock. Don't be in bed. Don't be anywhere near under the covers until you are ready for sleep. So sleepy and tired. And that's the difference. We're tired all the time, but if you're tired but still wired and you're not sleepy, so you need to, and it doesn't matter whether that's 10 p.m. or 4 a.m. Someone like me, as if I was your practitioner, I say, doesn't matter for now. We're just going to get you. We want you to be in a situation where you're only in bed for sleeping, like matching the time in bed with sleep. And we sort of have this calculation that we have with the work that I used to do as a clinician. We want to look at your time in bed, your total sleep time divided by time in bed. If you think about that, if that was 4 out of 8, you're getting a 50% sleep efficiency. And these high achievers that I'm speaking to, your audience, the high achievers want an A. They don't want a 50%. They used to get 80 on their exams. So that I can't magically make them but I can make that 4 out of 5.
Yes.
I can make them get an A. I can make them get an A I think straight away tonight you can get an A because you're matching. You can get a 4 out of 5. You think, okay, well, I'm only getting 4 or 5 hours anyway. So what we say is just
go to
be in
bed.
bed under the covers for 4 or 5 hours maximum.
Interesting.
Don't lie. You're violating the principles of good sleep health if you're in bed awake being distressed. It's okay. Those of you who are great sleepers like you, Hallie, don't take my advice. Just do what you're doing. But someone who's thinking, oh, you know what, I really need to lean in here and learn a few hot tips.
Yes.
They're the principles. And a lot of what I'm talking about are the principles of CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And we have a really good fact sheet on the Sleep Apnea Nation website. It's just a couple of pages and it just gives you the sort of an outline what it is. So then you might think, oh, look, that sounds good to me. And then we've also got a directory of CBTI practitioners in Australia who've done the appropriate training. Right. So some of them are psychologists, some of them are OT, some of the nurses they've done the training within the Australian Sleep Association, sort of the stuff that I teach, that's what I've done for years. So the kind of things I've been talking about just now, they are the principles of CBTI. So cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which is what I've done all my life as a psychologist interested in sleep. And we have a very good fact sheet on our Sleep Apnea Nation website on that, which we can put in the show notes, episode notes. And we also have a directory of people in Australia who have done appropriate training in CBTI that people can think, oh, that's great, because they can go and find them in their local area. Because it's another big issue is access to sleep experts as well, because there's a lot of, it wasn't in the curriculum when it was still not. There's not a lot of health professionals that know much about sleep and insomnia. And so the default has been medication, or the default of us, conscientious people are just trying to do natural things and then probably self-medicating on stuff that you either don't need or may just sometimes have, complications as well, like interactions and things like, people don't realize that even something as seemingly harmless as melatonin might interact, or, certain vitamins and things, interact with your other medications. So it's just really important to do stuff under the guidance of a professional who knows what they're talking about with sleep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's know the cause, inverted commas, or reflect on what it might be that has prompted this, and do that in a science-based way with a health professional that can support you on once you know what's at play, which avenue you can take, because the avenue for me might be different to the avenue for you, which is different to the avenue for somebody else.
Precisely. Yep.
Oh, you go. You're about to say something.
Oh, yeah. So I think that a lot of people with sleep issues, the vast majority will not have professional intervention. The vast majority will be able to have self-help and to be able to just kind of, sometimes people just need to prioritize it more, just watch a little bit less Netflix and, to pull back on the caffeine and the booze and and manage stress workloads. And they think, oh gosh, look how good I am, and not have them be a bit of discipline, sort of boundary setting around their phone use, which I haven't even touched on that yet, because it's a bugbear of mine that there's too much focus on that. Whereas most people with sleep problems, that is not their problem. It's not the people with sleep problems that preceded any kind of addiction to phone use. Yes, it's just a little bit overstated, that part of it. Particularly, a lot of conscientious people are already onto that. They've got the night glow on their phone. A key principle would be to know that, bright light, and whether it's from a phone or just, the overhead lights in your house, are known to suppress melatonin, which is the hormone we all produce in response to dim light or dark conditions. And that helps us to initiate and maintain sleep. And conversely, during the daytime, in the morning, we want to be out in the light as much as possible. So that's another hot tip is, morning light as close as possible to wake up time. That's the best strategy for me in my sleep is morning walks. Like people think I don't even think about sleep by the time I go to bed. It's actually about what I do during the day. It's managing my stress. It's walks in the morning. It's daytime little cat naps if I need it. Like I'm a world champion nap, especially work from home. Work from home suits me really well. Then I will go and have a little lie down. I set my alarm for half an hour. I'll probably get a 10, 15, 20 minute sleep. And it's all within the rules. I can say this on the record.
Well, I would hope the Sleep Foundation allows whatever it takes to have healthy sleep.
Absolutely. Yeah, naps are great if they're short.
That's what I wanted to turn before, because you'd made this beautiful point about, as board directors, we want to be able to sleep and have healthy sleep so we can perform well in the boardroom. However, we also are the custodians of the well-being and health and safety of our CEOs, of our executive teams, and of the staff of organisations. What's your advice to chairs of boards who often have a much closer relationship with the CEO, or even for others who are on the people, culture, engagement committee, or whatever it may be? Like, should I be sitting down with the CEO next time I meet them saying, how'd you sleep last night? What's your advice?
In a way, you know what? Well, I think it just would be part. I would love to see it as a standard part of the check-in. Like when people say, how are you going? Like, health and well-being people, or that just that relationship with your chair or your CEO or your colleague, is to say, hey, how are you going? And not, you don't have to specifically say, are you sleeping well? But it could be what keeping you awake at night question. Like, so what are your sort of people? What's keeping you awake at night? And you can say, in all seriousness, are you getting plenty of sleep?
I like that.
Are you looking after yourself? How's your energy levels? What's your workload like? And I think it's just part of our personal sustainability. I think we are rightly so talking a lot about sustainability of the planet, and maybe hopefully not too late, but we have to start talking front and center about personal sustainability, and it's not just sleep, but it's stress, it's workload, it's physical and mental health. Like, my own, pain points are like, if I'm a great sleeper too, but sometimes I have some back issues, and sometimes I do have a racing mind, and sometimes I'm hot at night and those sorts of things. So that, dealing with those things, I think that it's important, and it's important to make sure that we do get adequate sleep, or know to catch up, have a little nap if we need to. I think a really key point is making sure that conscientious people know that consistent sleep is really important, like getting to bed at roughly the same time most nights and getting up roughly the same time most days, 7 days a week. But I really want people just to know that on your non-work days, and please give yourself at least a 2-hour buffer. Like if, a sleeping, when we say regular, consistent sleep, we're talking plus or minus 2 hours.
Yeah.
There is, don't be too restrictive on yourself and get up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday.
Yep.
Like, it's really important to not do that. And also don't just hear, if you love your 3-4 hours, whatever, it's just more, the point is not to sleep till, 2, because that upsets the apple cart with your circadian system and your melatonin rhythm and all that sort of stuff. But there was kind of that, this being informed but not taking it to the letter. Like, a lot of too much rigidity around sleep is
which is the same in so many things, right? Nutrition, you don't have to be perfect.
Totally. Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
it's the same. Yeah. Yes. There's so much to talk about. Yes.
Oh, I knew there'd be a lot in here, and such a good thing for board directors to focus on. What are the key things you want people to take away from the conversation that we've had today?
Oh, so many things. But to be succinct, I just want people to understand and really appreciate sleep as a core pillar of their health and their personal health strategy. I think that I want us to all talk about it more in workplaces and in schools, and it just hasn't had the full attention yet. So I want people to just help the Sleep Health Foundation's mission and talk about it in the same way, have the same attention that food and exercise has had in terms of, at a societal and workplace level. I want people to, depending on your attitude to sleep, if you have I'll sleep when I'm dead, you've kind of, I just don't really prioritize sleep. I'd love you to just understand that it is super important, and we actually can't afford to ignore it. But also, I really want to tell those people who feel like they're poor sleepers and they say they're a poor sleeper, I'd love them to think, well, maybe they're getting enough sleep. Maybe they are just short sleepers. Maybe their 6 hours or so is fine for them, because there's a big range. 6 to 10 is normal. And I just want to also, to address that overcorrection, that there's a lot of frenzy and there's a lot of anxiety about sleep. So I think if you're sort of a generally healthy person, just get the right information and go to the Sleep Apnea Nation website. It becomes with that main call to action is just don't put up with really poor sleep if it's really debilitating. That's probably the bottom line.
Oh, is there a resource you would like to share with the Take On Board community?
Yeah, well, I think the main resource for me is actually our
those
website,
100 fact
Sleep
sheets.
Apnea Nation website is those 100 fact sheets. And I think at the front page at the moment, on the very front page, it says there's two options of just where you're looking for sleep information, or the other button is explore your sleep. And it's a pilot trial we're doing at the moment with Flinders University. It's like a symptom checker, and it's going to help people to actually navigate better. Because how would you know to look at sleep apnea or hypersomnia or narcolepsy? You don't know what you're looking for. So that's really exciting. I'd love your listeners to please look at that and spread the word about that, because then we can get it up there it's at the moment, it's a trial. They could get a red cap survey, etc. And Flinders, it's a part of a research study. But when it's all done and dusted, it'll be there as a button for us that I'm just really excited that'll help so much with
I'm
the
going to have a
mission.
look at that too. Excellent. Oh, Moira, thank you. So awesome to have you here reflecting about how important sleep is. Side note, doubly awesome to have you in the Take On Board Accelerator program this year. It's so awesome to have you as part of that as well. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with the Take On Board community today.
Thanks, Helia. It's right back at you. I'm a big fan of you and your work. I'm an avid listener. I won't be able to listen to this, so I can't stand just listening to play something. So I'll have to miss this one. But yeah, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity and I appreciate this community you're creating.
Thank you.